Well, welcome to our Sunday Timothy's Porch Chat.
CitiTalk Porch Chat.
Yeah. So,
Minneapolis.
yeah, live from Minneapolis. So, Timothy,
Yes, sir.
mentioned that you had a dream. You called it a night dream?
Yeah, a night dream or night vision, and that's just something that I recognized it as when I was reading in the book of Isaiah about his having a night vision.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he described it, and God would come to him in his dreams. But I had this long drawn out dream. So, and I coined that idea. It's like night vision. I like that because I've had messages come into my life through dreams. And when I was 19 years old and I was in the workhouse, Minneapolis, Hennepin County workhouse.
Is this something when you're sleeping?
Yes, yeah. This particular vision was while I was sleeping. And I've had some while I was awake too. But
Now, did this happen when you were at the workhouse?
yes, I was in segregation in the workhouse, and
Always a fun place to be.
oh yeah, I was typically acting out when I was locked up when I was young. I was fighting everything and everybody, and I tried to escape from the workhouse and rather than just do my little time, you know. But the escape was so pathetic that they couldn't even charge me with it. So I was standing in a window during count, and I'd set my bed, put like things in my bed to make it look like there's a human in there. And the guard came by and stopped and looked kind of weird at it. And he looked forward, and it seemed like he, in his peripheral vision, was seeing me standing in the window, and I'm sure it was pretty obvious, you know, with this shadow standing in a window behind him. And he pretended to not see me, and he went and he finishes his count, and then of course the goon squad came a few minutes later and collected me. And I went to the hall. But I was sleeping and I had this long drawn out dream, and at the time I didn't really understand what it was, you know. But in the dream I was in a semi-tractor trailer being driven down a freeway at night. And I was sitting in between these two guys, and, you know, the driver and the passenger, and I had this silver helmet on, and from the helmet, the right side of the helmet, there was a chain that hung down from, you know, the beaded chains, almost like you have on light switches, you know?
Right.
It looked a little like that, but they were silver beaded chain-like thing.
Yeah.
And then from the end was a key. And and you know, I could see myself while I was myself, you know. I could see myself from the outside in, as if I was almost a spectator, but my consciousness was in my mind in the dream. And we're just riding along without conversation, and then he pulled over for gas, and at one of those gas stations, combination hotels and restaurants, you know. And he had the tank up, so we got out, and it was a really nice night outside. The weather was very comfortable, very slight breeze, and they were going to go into the restaurant and get something to eat, and I was just standing there feeling very comfortable and loving the feel of the weather and how peaceful and quiet it was out there, because you had the constant hum of the truck. And they said, well, we're going to go in and grab a bite to eat while we're tanking up. You want to come join us? And I said, no, I think I'm going to just take a little stroll, And I walked away from all the lights of the gas station and restaurant to the hotel area, and it being at night, probably 2, 3 in the morning, who knows what it was. It was very quiet over there, and as I got to the parking lot area, I could see the moonlight shining down on things to where you could still see it was bright enough. And then I noticed there was an automotive guy working on somebody's car. He had the hood up, he's leaned over, and he was working by moonlight, basically, trying to help this guy out to get his car going. And the guy that he was trying to help looked like he's white, suburban type of guy, and he's standing there with maybe 6 foot tall with his arms crossed, and he's assuming a posture of gratitude. It's like, this guy's working on my car, I mean, you could just sense everything about it. And it occurred to me at the time that they were working by doing service work and doing something for free, and it seemed spiritual in nature. And but they were working by a natural light, and it was impressive, but yet I just sensed that there was some lower law going on there, And then I saw...
By lower law, what do you mean?
Well, earthly. It's like we see the sunlight, we see the moonlight, and we're working by the, underneath these things we can't see without light, but it's hard to describe what I mean, but you don't have the clarity without the sunlight of the spirit, if you will, And you can still work at night, but when you're working by moonlight, it just seems almost inadequate to the task, but yet life is perfect, It's hard to describe what I mean. I've never really dissected that part of it, but I remember the dream so much after all these years. I mean, I was 19 years old, and that's 41 years ago. So, 42. And but then I saw this light, some light was up in the sky and coming down to me like at a 45-degree angle, not to me, but coming down out of the sky at a 45-degree angle, and all these lights were coming down from heaven, and it was every color imaginable coming down. And I looked to where it was going, and there was this wall, maybe 4 feet tall. I don't know how long the wall was, maybe 6 or 8 feet, And it was like a shale, where people make walls out of shale and they layer them, And they look really cool. I mean, it's very artistic. And then they cover the top layer with a different rock, so it's all nice and flat. And the light poured into that wall, and it just kept coming down out of heaven and just pouring into her, just not a very good description, and as it was pouring into this wall, slowly but surely the colors were being absorbed by the stone, and slowly these words were appearing in the stone, and there was 4 words, and it showed the Lord is coming. And each word, every letter and each word, the light was getting brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer, and they were all fluctuating like this, and And then I suddenly saw this stairway appear in front of me. And the stairs were going up into the sky. And the stairs, were really wide at the base, but going up, into the air, it got narrower. You could see it was getting narrower. But I don't even know if I could see the top of it. I don't think I could. But I just saw all these stairs in front of me. There were these huge steps, And this first step was very tall, and there must have been some part of me that sensed I had to go up these steps, And I tried to jump up to this first step, and I almost got a hold of it. I was kind of hanging there, but I didn't quite have a good enough hold, and I dropped. And I tried again, and I managed to get a hold of the step, And I pulled myself up, and it was a real deep step. There was a lot of landing space here, And it's very wide, very easy to be on. And then the second step was easier to get up on, but it wasn't as wide because they tapered more narrow, and it was shorter each step I went up. And the third step, and the fourth step, and the fifth step, and the sixth step, and the seventh step, and the eighth step, and the higher I got, the more the wind was blowing. And when I was at the ninth step, it was getting narrow and shorter, and it was harder to hold on because it wasn't like a railing or anything, And the wind was blowing, and I sensed that the wind itself had this evil desire to just blow me off of that. It didn't even matter if it killed me, It didn't want me doing this. It was trying to blow me off of these steps. And I was getting really scared because, it's like this, I could see to the top, but I couldn't see what the top was. And it wasn't very far up. And I thought, I'm going to be blown off this thing, and I'm going to die because I'm way up here in the air. Mm-hmm. And I just said a prayer. I said, God help me. And then this railing just appeared on the 10th step.
Oh, wow.
And I reached up and I grabbed that railing, and as soon as I grabbed the railing that God provided for me, give me that extra help, I was able to go to the 10th, 11th, and 12th, boom, 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 but the wind had almost totally ceased as soon as I got a hold of that. But my fear of just about being blown off of this thing, just made me run up that thing, I was like, oh my God, thank God I'm safe, I'm okay. And when I got to the top of this 12th step, if you will, there's this landing, and I sensed in the spirit that it was 25 feet by 25 feet exactly. And I don't know that I knew what that meant, but it was perfectly, I just sensed it was a perfect square. And it had a railing going outside of it, except for where the stairs were, you could go up and down the stairs. But I looked around, and then I saw that there was this, I don't know if it just suddenly appeared or if it was there, but and I just noticed it, but there was this huge structure, a ballroom suspended in air. There was nothing underneath it. It was just like hanging in the air, and all these people were dancing together, men in tuxedos and women in beautiful gowns, and they were swirling. They were obviously very rich, and in the back of the room there was this huge clock, and the outside of the clock was gold, and it had these huge beams of gold going out as if it was a sun, but it wasn't. It was just gold, and but it was simulating the sun, and it was huge and extravagant, and you know, um, and I noticed that it was at the exact same level that I was on, but it didn't have a foundation, you know, and that was the world. That was, you know, people that were enjoying the riches of this world, and they're all together and they got all this stuff going on, but there's nothing beneath them, you know. And what was holding it up is the power of the air, and it was probably the same one that was trying to blow me off of the stairs, you know. And so, and I was alone, and they had all this, right? But I just simply noticed that, right? And I was kind of debating in my mind, well, what does any of this even mean? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard a noise of a truck in the distance starting up, a semi-tractor trailer, right? And then, oh, I wonder if that's our truck, you know? And I looked down and I could see the truck that I was in. They were pulling away from the diesel pump, you know? And I thought, oh no, they're gonna leave without me. And I was yelling at them, hey, wait, you know, and they couldn't hear me. You know, I mean, it's quite a ways away from them. And as they pulled away, it was a very, very lonely feeling. I felt like I was totally alone in the world. There was nobody anywhere. And they left. And then I woke up from the dream, you know. So years later, I was going, you know, after I was in sobriety, and I don't even know that I connected the dots, that those were the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point I made that connection. I don't remember when I made that connection. Cheers and morning coffee. And but I was going up to Hazelden at Center City, which they call the mothership, because they've got a number of facilities. And the one in Center City was the first Hazelden facility, so they just called it the mothership, you know. And,
right.
Kind of like an Independence Day or something, I don't know, where they came up with the term. They didn't even have Independence Day movie back then, where they have the mothership and all the other ships, you know. So I thought it was an interesting phrase. I never forgot it when I heard it was called the mothership. But as I was going toward the building at Cork Center, they had this long wall on each side of the sidewalk, and it was of the shale that was layered, you know, and had the top on it, just like in my dream. And I actually remembered the dream at that point, and I went, this looks just like the rock that was in my dream. And it said, the Lord is coming. So I knew I was supposed to be here. This was part of that dream, right? And I didn't know how that was going to pan out and what all that meant, but I knew I was on the path. It's just one of the many things in my life that told me that this meant something. And then at some point I met a woman from MAD called Mary Jo Robinson. I don't know if she transmitted some information to me later or if it was early on. Can't remember. Many years ago. This is 27 years ago. And but she came to speak at our recovery group in Stillwater, Minnesota. Not the prison, the recovery Alamo Club. And she was our celebration of recovery speaker, and she spoke of forgiveness of the person who killed her son while driving under the influence, and she said the reason she was able to tell this guy she loved him and she forgave him in court at the time of sentencing was a testimony to her faith and her willingness to follow her faith no matter how hard it was. You know, we're commanded to forgive everything, you know, even your enemies. Love your enemies, you know, and forgive them. They know not what they do, and that whole thing. I mean, if Christ could forgive the entire world for what they did, and we're supposed to follow that as a model, we need to let go of everything. He's already paid that price, right?
Bless those that curse you.
Yeah, right. Bless those that curse you and use you despite. Do it for my sake, basically. Do it for his sake. If nothing else, you know, you can't do it for your own reasons. Surrender your own reasons and just trust, you know. And she said that she was able to love him and forgive him because, you know, 2 reasons. 1, she's a Christian. 2, and she's in recovery. And both teach forgiveness. And even when life is tough, she lost her son, you know, and this was still fresh and raw, but yet she still forgave regardless of the temperature of her heart. And those were her words, and she was quoting Corrie Ten Boom, who was in a concentration camp for hiding Jews, you know, and she said that we have to forgive regardless of the temperature of our hearts. So I put that on the back of my business card, that quote, because it made such a difference in my life. And Mary Jo became my spiritual advisor. Some people call it a sponsor, but I prefer spiritual advisor myself, you know. And part of the reason I wanted a female sponsor is because I had been sexually abused by a male in my childhood, and I didn't trust men. I didn't trust the male anything, you know, and I thought trust of a male meant I was going to be betrayed and I'd lose my freedom and I'd get hurt somehow. And even if it wasn't sexual, I had no trust, you know. And obviously I hadn't completely done the 3rd step, you know, which the 3rd step is we're entirely ready to let God, that's 6th step, turned our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God, you know. And so there's a part of my life I wasn't turning over to the care of God. I mean, if my life belongs to God, then why am I worried about it? It's none of my business anymore. And I wanted to, and I knew it was the right thing to do, to let go and let God, you know, like the slogans say. And many people subscribe to that, but I was struggling in this one area with forgiveness. I thought of this guy, I thought about killing him. I didn't think about forgiving him, right? So that's why I chose a female sponsor. And Mary Jo was up in age, and she was kind of like a mom, like a mother figure. And you know, just there was no part of that I could sexualize with her, you know. She was like a grandmother, really, mom or grandmother. And so anyway, there was no attraction there, you know. So there wasn't a threat to my recovery. If there had been any attraction between me and a woman, I would distance myself from her on purpose, you know, because I'm focusing on recovery. It was very important. It was more important than anything, you know.
Good idea.
Pardon?
Good idea.
Yeah. So, and they do teach that in treatment. It's not in the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're just supposed to be careful on campus about who we're dating and things like that. But they're not arbiters of our sex life and things like that. That they don't have an opinion on that. But I knew for me that I needed to be very, very careful about how I'm conducting my relationships and focus on recovery. I didn't have a girlfriend, I wouldn't get into a relationship, etc. It's what I needed to do for my recovery at that time. So I just wanted to dispel any ideas that I was outside of the box on that. But Mary Jo was very good for me. It's like God put her in my life. And I did my fifth step with her, and there's a lot of people don't know what fifth step is and a fourth step and all that, but the fifth step is where we reveal everything we've done wrong, you know, and all the things that we are resentful about, you know, and resentments are like the worst thing for a person in recovery to have. They're the number one offender, as they say, for leading to relapse, and so we have to deal with our resentments, and resentments are a lack of forgiveness, you know. And
Right.
yeah, I'm struggling in this one area. I got resentments, and I got them big time, you know. And I was having such a hard time letting go of that, and I you know, talked about my being abused and the anger I had during my fifth step. And Mary Jo, I did my fifth step with her, and I told her the worst things I'd ever done in my life, and I knew that if I didn't open that up, if I didn't let the sunlight of the Spirit into the deepest part of my heart that was afraid of telling another human being what I had done, I knew if I was too scared to do that, that there was a part of me that was still holding on to it, and I had to let go of it. I had to trust this process. And I was terrified of doing a fifth step, you know. I was like, all right, God, if you want me to do a fifth step, I got no trust for anybody. Who am I supposed to do it with? And I immediately had a vision of Mary Jo's face, and there is a spiritual white light that is in a vision that can't be duplicated by anything else. You just know